lecture, we're going to apply our point of view terms to a poem, in particular Robert Browning's My Last Duchess. So the first thing to do is determine whether the speaker is first person or third person. And recall, since we're talking about poetry, we're talking about a speaker. In this case, it's pretty easy to identify. In line 2, we have I call, and so that I is a dead giveaway that we have a first person speaker. The designations first person and third person refer to pronouns. So first person speakers use I and me, and third person speakers use he, she, it, those kinds of pronouns. Now that we've identified this as a first person speaker, we know that the speaker is taking part in the text. The other task we have is to identify whether or not this speaker is reliable. The story that the speaker is telling is about his wife. He gives quite a lot of description of her, and it becomes clear over the course of the poem that, at least from the Duke's point of view, his wife was not ideal. At first, this perception is pretty benign. He talks about the painting of her as a wonder in line 3, and he describes the look on her face as one of depth and passion and an earnest glance. None of that seems very bad. But as we go on in the poem, and as we get into the inner frame where he's remembering the Duchess herself rather than simply describing the painting, and if you take a look around line 22, he says, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. These lines are a clue that the Duke is actually implying that his wife was behaving in ways that she shouldn't have been as a married woman. Her looks went everywhere implies that she may have been cheating on him or at least flirting with men when she shouldn't have been. As we read on, we see that it's not just men that he was worried about. 'Twas all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech or blush at least. Now we get a sense that in this whole catalog of things, the setting sun, a bough of cherries, her white mule, that he doesn't want her to be happy about any of these things. Why? We get a sense in the next few lines. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift. So in other words, he feels like he's not special enough in her eyes. The fact that she's happy about all kinds of stuff and not just about him is what bothers him about her. So now that we start to hear what is really bothering him about where she's looking and what she's being happy about, and the broad catalog of things that he doesn't want her to be happy about, and the fact that he feels sort of injured because she ranks his gift of a 900 years old name with anybody's gift, should give us begin to give us a sense of the Duke's character and whether or not he's reliable when he's talking about his wife's character. Needless to say, he doesn't seem to be very reliable. It seems as though he is very easily insulted, and not only that, it becomes clear as we continue reading on that he didn't actually tell her that this bothered him because he just assumed that she wouldn't fix the problem. And we can see this in lines around 35 or so. Even if you had skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such a one and say, just that in you disgusts me, here you miss or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours forsooth and made excuse, even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. So there he's actually making an excuse for why he didn't just talk to her about this and tell her that, hey, this stuff is bothering me, cut it out, right? He claims that she would not let herself be, quote, lessoned so. In other words, she wouldn't let herself be taught this lesson that he wants to teach her, and that she would set her wits against his or make excuses. So that's his claim. But in reality, the facts are, based on what he just said, he simply never discussed it with her. And so she never had the opportunity to fix the problem. And again, there definitely could be things wrong with the fact that this is a problem that has to be fixed, but setting that aside for the moment. So that gives us a good sense of the count. And I think as we continue on and see what bothers him about her behavior, the fact that he's unwilling to talk to her about that, it becomes pretty clear that the Duke is not very reliable as someone representing his wife's character. He has his own stake in that representation, and he's trying to make it clear that he's very, very justified in what he did, and basically what he did was have her killed. He has a very good reason for his bias and a very clear motive for telling this story as a warning to the character who's listening to him. First person narrator in this poem, not a reliable narrator. And I'll just end on the issue of voice, because this is a really good example to talk about voice. And remember, that is the verbal quality of the narration. We get a very, very good sense of character's verbal qualities in this poem. Those little parenthetical asides, like, she had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, right? Those sorts of things render this like authentic speech, like actual dialogue that's being spoken out loud. And later on, when he says, even if you had skill in speech, which I have not, oh, you know, he protests too much. Clearly, he's a skilled speaker based on the poem, and he's using this little tick, had you skill in speech, which I have not, to sort of emphasize his, his own verbal quality in that case. So this is also a good example to look at voice, and when you're evaluating voice, you want to do that. You want to focus in on specific details that will help you describe. Hopefully that gives you a good sense of applying our point of view terms to poetry.